Hello, everybody. It is 10:01 p.m. Central Time on Sunday, November 27th, 2016. And I hope you're doing good. We're here on the Earthquake 3D live stream where we daily recap seismic events that strike around the world, and we issue semi-daily and weekly earthquake forecasts for areas to watch for new movement to strike. And that all being said, everybody in the chat room looks like we're starting out with about 350 or 60 people. That's really cool to see. And again, welcome in to anybody who's new. Please subscribe up to get future updates. Now, that being said, let's get into what struck today. Now, you may remember last night we had a few areas where we issued warnings for new activity to strike. I want you to take a look at the earthquakes that struck throughout the day today. Here's pretty much at 24 hours worth of activity. And you can see our silent spot in the West Pacific, Taiwan, was struck. Following that, a 5.4 struck in Nepal. And it's been several weeks since Nepal's seen any kind of noteworthy movement. And again, guys, this earthquake actually started out a little bit higher. And if you go check the station list, I won't bore you with that information. This is the ultimate magnitude they ended up going with. But it was actually higher, detected at multiple stations. This is the spot we warned, these two spots, the only spots to be struck today by above 4.0 earthquake activity. Additionally, to the west of our deep earthquakes and to the south of our deep earthquakes, we saw New Zealand get struck by a succession of 4s going into a 5, as I told you about this morning in my update. Additionally, going to the west into the Solomon Islands, eastern Solomon Islands, a new swarm of upper 4s going into 5.0, many of these detected above 5. Ultimately, they went with 4.8, 4.7 on those. So, each spot on either side of the deep earthquake has now moved, and it's starting to pick up with swarms going out to our middle point, which was at Taiwan, and second middle point over at Nepal. Now, for all my people over at the Dutch Sense Italia Terremoto 3D International live stream, check it out. Look at the swarm that struck today in central Italy. Additionally, guys, this topped out. It wasn't just a swarm, but it topped out above 4.0. Now, they ultimately went with 3.9 on this, but I went and checked the station information. Here's the 3.9. We go over to the seismologist page, and you guys are going to see something pretty interesting here. Now, they went with the lower. They always go with the lower. You know, you guys, we've talked about this before, but we'll go down and click on the 3.9. See how they have that at 3.9? All right, let's get the station list on this. And we're going to have our magnitudes over here on the right-hand side. And I don't know how many stations they have reporting here. It doesn't say, but I mean, there's a nice progression of stations. And you can make out all the 4s in here on the right-hand side. 4.3, 4.4. Going down, several stations actually even picking up near 5. And this is the Italian stations that we're going with here, the INGV. Now, if we go check the other agencies that were detected the very same earthquake, we'll go down the list, and our magnitudes are here in the first column of zeros, and you'll see 5.2, mid-range 4s. Okay, so upper 4 is where I'm leaning on this. They went with 3.9 as an ultimate average between all the stations. But there it is, guys. Okay, so what it is we get a range of earthquakes detected. They always go with the lower magnitudes. I think there's some political reasons into that, not just science playing into that. You've got to throw out some of the lower magnitudes, in my opinion. That's going to throw things off, and that's exactly what they don't do. So that being said, mid-range 4, upper 4, lower 5. Well, I'm thinking it's not a lower 5. I'm thinking it's an upper 4. That's close enough. That's what we were looking for to strike, in addition to the swarm. And the swarm, if you add 10 3s together, that equals a 4. And 10 2s equals a 3. So you can clearly see this stack of earthquakes is right in the spot where we were talking about. Additionally, we got some reports of some activity striking in Greece, but I believe that was associated. It was a false earthquake report in Greece that you got. Several people sent me a false earthquake report. I call it a false report because it actually was detected, but I believe it was coming off the 3.5. This 3.5 struck to the east in Romania, and it's actually fairly deep, but not down below the plate. It's about I would say right at the bottom of the plate, about 140 kilometers down. So it's shallow enough that it's not going to cause major movement, the 3.5, but it should cause at least one magnitude larger, which puts it at 4.5. And then, of course, that takes us back into central Italy, most likely as another spot to watch tomorrow for another round to strike based upon the deep earthquake in Romania. But again, like I said, it should only top out at tops 4.5. That's good news. We're talking about actually less earthquake activity. And when you see a swarm like this, so it topped out in the mid-range 4 with a swarm of 2s and 3s. The 2s and 3s are what we want to see, and maybe even a few 4s, that relieve that pressure as opposed to one single 5. Okay, so if we get multiple 3s, multiple 2s, even a 4 mixed in there, that's what we want to see. That's good news. Okay? Now, also, since then, we've seen a progression of earthquakes spread out to the west along the plate boundary in Algeria, going out west past Gibraltar. So you see the 3.5 here. That's Algeria, northern Algeria, right along the plate boundary. And 2.4, 1 magnitude less, striking far out to the west, about 1,000 kilometers to the west. This is expected pressure to transfer out of Italy and go out to the west and go up to the northwest. So you can see it went to the west and it also went to the northwest. Leftovers off the swarm, whatever pressure was not expended at the swarm, went up between Florence, Torino, and Milan and caused a near 3.0 earthquake. But again, it's just the leftover pressure. Most of the pressure is being expended now at this point, real time. So as pressure comes in from Greece and Turkey, it doesn't have much build-up time in Greece and Turkey, and it's going right into Italy and expending at that fault zone. The fact that it's expending almost immediately is good. It means if you see this go quiet, if you see this go completely quiet, just stop with no earthquakes, let's say, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but let's say for some weird reason tomorrow this just goes completely quiet. Well, that's not good. We actually want to see the energy be expended along the fault zones. And if they're not, that's when we get a locking up and a building of pressure. Okay? And with what's going on back over here to the east, that would not be a good scenario. So, what do we have going on over to the east? We have a 5.4 that struck and a leftover 4.6 from yesterday. But pretty much all that struck today, above 4.0 across Nepal, Middle East, all the way over to Turkey, just the 5.4. So tomorrow we should see a dramatic increase across Iran and Turkey going into Greece. Most likely western Turkey, Iran will be hit by, Iran should be hit by an upper 4. So this 5.4 will lose a little bit of steam and momentum coming across the Himalayan range, going across Afghanistan and Pakistan, and it should reach into Iran, western Iran, along the plate boundary and cause an upper 4. Then to the west we should see new movement strike back in western Turkey, setting the stage for a new round of activity to strike in Italy. So, Italy, you have now been hit as expected. You saw it for yourself, the station list, going up into the upper 4, lower 5, plus a swarm. Now there's a new round of pressure coming in. We have to issue another 48-hour warning for 2 days from now. So here we are. Okay, now I understand you're about 7 hours ahead of me, so you're actually on the 28th. We actually have to go to, actually we're going to probably have to take this right into, let me get out my calendar here. We're going to have to take this into Wednesday night, the 30th. Okay? So, on Wednesday night, the 30th, by 10 p.m. Wednesday night, this should all be swarming out again, and we should have a renewed threat back in central Italy, and that should be for an upper 4 again. More like maybe even right equal to what strikes in Iran. So, again, we're looking for an upper 4 to strike in Iran. That will be followed by a quick swarm in Greece, then release in Italy, just like today. And the swarm will double back up again, so it'll probably start to slow down by tomorrow. And we hope that there won't be any larger release tonight. We hope this is all she wrote on the pressure incoming. But a new 5.4 back here means there's something on its way right now. How long is it going to take for this 5.4 to press over to Italy? At the most, it should take 48 hours. Okay, so I mean, it just keeps on happening, guys. I told you, as these deep earthquakes happen, they put pressure to the west, and now I think it's pretty obvious. They put pressure to the west. I mean, you can connect the dots on the earthquakes. Now there's spots that are not filled in yet. Those are our silent zones. Speaking of silent zones, we talked about South America last night. We talked about the border of Ecuador. Europeans reported a 4.8 at the border of Ecuador. USGS chose not to report that earthquake. Go check the European site for that. To the south, Peru struck multiple 4s, going up to 4.7. The central point here at Chile being our focus spot, just as expected. We told you new pressure was coming in. It's going to hit this place like a wall. It's going to spread out in both directions and cause similar sized earthquakes. And as you can see, 4.5 on one side, 4.7 on the other, within 0.2 of each other. Okay? Also, as if we needed any more proof that pressure was coming across, a 5.1 struck southwest of Easter Island on the southeast Pacific Rise. You can see that on the screen here. That's not that rare. We only see this kind of activity after we see deep earthquakes over in the West Pacific. Pressure always transfers across from the West Pacific, where our deep earthquakes are raised high off the globe, over to the east. Okay? So, going into tomorrow, next 24 to 48 hours, there's going to be two things that occur. One, it appears the pressure is spreading up across Ecuador right now. This means we should see at least one 4.7 strike up near Panama within the next day. Why 4.7? Well, we have a 4.7 to the south. We have a swarm happening to the north. We have multiple volcanic eruptions happening across Central America. This spot at Panama meeting Colombia has not been hit in a couple days, and the pressure is seeking a way to the north. Also, the pressure is seeking a way to the south. So the 5.1 down to the south plus the swarm of 3s and 4s to the north adds up to 5.2, and that takes us back down to South Sandwich Islands, which coincides with what we warned for yesterday. We talked about that yesterday. It's still going to happen. Nobody really lives there, so it's not a big deal, okay? Central America, take a look at this, guys. Now, as if we needed a sign that something else was getting ready to happen in Central America, you don't see it on the map. I guess they just took it off. It was, again, reported by the Europeans. A 4.7 struck east of Puerto Rico over at Dominica, between Dominica and Barbados. Well, now the pressure button has been reset, and we need to jump back over and take a look at the volcano report. Look at this. Okay, Colima sent off a new blast. Also, Popocatépetl sent off a new blast. That's in central Mexico. Sabancaya in Peru. Copihu in Chile, Argentina. All sending off new blasts today. Why? Incoming pressure off the deep earthquakes from 2 days ago. A day or two. Well, actually, the last 48 hours. So it's all transferring over to the east right now, which means we're building up, and it's going to transfer down to the south pretty quick. It's going to skip right over our earthquake points, or right over our volcanic eruption location at Copihu, and then go down to the South Sandwich Islands. Up to the north, where we have the eruptions, again across Central America, going into Mexico, you guys being struck by multiple eruptions means the area to the north and the area to the south is under some serious pressure. Now, the area to the south has volcanic eruptions happening further down, again in Central America, but Mexico, South Mexico, is going to be under tremendous pressure, and North Mexico is going to be under tremendous pressure. How much? Well, with two volcanic eruptions, that's two 5.0 earthquakes. I equate a volcanic eruption, one blast from a place like Colima, several thousand worth of zeros, ones, and twos. Well, that's going to equal a 5. And if you have two of those, you have Popo sending off a blast 15,000 feet high, and you have Colima send off a new blast 10,000 feet high. That's actually the equivalent of two 5.0 earthquakes. So two 5.0 earthquakes adds up to 5.1 and a half. Let's call it 5.2. So 5.2 earthquake potential in the Gulf of California, just south of the border, now exists because of two new blasts today in Mexico. Now further to the south, again, like I said, those eruptions, they relieve pressure in the areas where the eruptions are happening. So get back to the volcano list here, Popo, but we have to add Sabancaya and Copihu down to the south. Okay, now you'll notice the southern tip of Central America has dramatically dropped off in volcanic eruptions, right? So you remember, Turrialba was erupting over the past several weeks. Also, Nevado del Ruiz was erupting over the past several weeks in Colombia. They stopped. Well, again, that takes us back to the north with the 4.7. Again, striking near Panama because the eruptions down to the south are canceling out for Peru and for Chile in the spots where it's silent. Makes sense to me. If you've been watching for a long time, guys, we see a lack of earthquakes sometimes in the areas that are being struck by volcanic eruptions. Now, it sounds counterintuitive. You would think that there would be some large earthquakes associated with new eruptions. Well, maybe if there's a huge explosive blast type eruption, maybe. But if we're talking about just regular volcanic activity, when pressure comes into an area, it compresses up from underneath on the bottom side of the plate. Most of this pressure is coming from up underneath, and it actually displaces the magma chamber, which then causes the eruption. Well, when it displaces the magma chamber and causes the eruption, that relieves the pressure on that area. But if you see an area build and build and build, then that's the potential for a large earthquake building in that area if there's not a volcanic eruption that happens to relieve the pressure. Okay? So that all being said, guys, this is the update for tonight. Now we're going to have to watch some new silent zones that have developed out in light of our earthquakes that struck today. So, since I've been talking here, a 4.4 struck directly at Guam. By the way, we warned Guam last night, and I said it would be similar size movement on either side, correct? At Taiwan and Guam? Well, now Guam has been struck, and the earthquake is similar size. That's 2 direct hits. We warned Guam last night. We warned Taiwan. Actually, that's 3, I'm sorry. Guam was warned. Taiwan was warned. Nepal was warned. All 3 have been hit, almost in a line connecting between the 3. Okay, now again, that's not any chance or luck. The reason that struck is because of compensation movement. So, that being said, this is 24 hours worth of earthquakes right here. Now here's 48. So, look at our silent zones. There's a few spots that haven't been hit yet. We're getting back down into Papua New Guinea in the spot we warned last night for a 48 to 72 hour watch for the potential of a 7.9. Why up to that high? Why are we looking for an increase? Well, guys, there's been new deep earthquakes that happened, multiples. We were already at mid-range 7s to begin with for this week, struck on both sides of the Pacific. Over in Central America, the 7, and up in Japan, the 7. Now let me show that to you here. 7 there, and they downgraded it to 6.9 in Japan, whatever. It was a 7.4. So 7.4 in Japan, 7.0 down in Central America, mid-range 6s around the rest of the plate. What does that mean? It means we're going to see an increase this week up another notch from where we just were over the past couple days. Well, if we go up another notch from where we were past couple days, that takes us up into upper 7, lower 8. To go from 7.4 to 7.9, let's say. So we have a 4.9 deep earthquake over to the east, and we had a 4.2 deep earthquake over to the west. And right in between these zones, there hasn't been any movement in many, many days' time, and that's abnormal in itself. And this is 7 days of earthquakes right here. Notice anything. 7 days worth of earthquakes, that's the only spot now that hasn't been hit in the West Pacific. Highly abnormal. It would normally get hit by multiple 4s and 5s over the course of a week, and it's been quiet. So we have a building threat level in the middle of this zone, and it could go 1 magnitude higher than we would normally expect off a deep earthquake. And normally, off a 4.9, we would see a shallow 5.9 to 6.9. But you add in a week's worth of silence in an area where there'd be normally 4 or 10 4.0s and probably a couple 5s, well, that takes us up a whole nother half magnitude. Again, guys, that takes us up to upper 7. Potential. So, silent zone's the spot to watch. The only saving grace on this is that not many people live there. And it could be a swarm. We hope for a swarm. Always hope for a swarm. We're not hoping for the huge megaquake. We are hoping that it relieves the pressure with a large swarm of earthquakes that develops out, that exponentially releases that pressure one after the other, after the other, after the other. Like what's happening over in Italy right now. Only bigger. So the earthquakes would be bigger, but you'd see a stack like this strike over here, and that would be good news instead of a single larger earthquake. Okay? So, looking at 48 hours worth of earthquakes, there's a few spots in between the spots that are now going to be hit. This gets really complex. So between the 4.1 and the 4.6 up here in Japan, you see this, okay, 4.1 to 4.6. Well, between the two zones, we have a silent zone in the middle. This is Kyushu going down to the first island near Suwanisejima volcano. We also have Sakurajima volcano. So Sakurajima stopped erupting, by the way. There could be a new volcanic blast mixed in here, but I'm not forecasting that. I'm just saying it could happen. But the potential for the earthquake exists right in the middle here. And since we had our deep earthquake a day ago, we just saw Taiwan start to move. We have to take into account the deep earthquake, the 4.2, which means the potential for a shallow 5.2 to 6.2 exists in the area in the middle between these two zones. Okay? Secondly, up to the north, looking at the last 48 hours, we talked about this last night. We're looking at Hokkaido going north to Kamchatka. This goes north of Hokkaido into the Kuril Islands. Still a halfway point, has not been hit yet. Should be hit by a combined total between the two. We talked about that last night. Issued a 48 to 72 on it. Today is just 24. Okay. So one other area that we should talk about, Alaska. Well, guys, we told you Alaska-Aleutian Island chain had gone silent, right? And we talked about the central point here as a spot to watch. And look what happened. The only noteworthy earthquakes in the North Pacific today struck there. Now, we had a few threes over on Alaska, but out here in the Aleutian, there it is, 3.9 right on top of where we were looking last night, 4.7 right next to it. Guys, that's no coincidence. It was the middle point in the silent zone to the north. And that fulfills with the fours that are going all the way around the plate, and we're looking for an upper four to be striking here off the northwest coast of California. Why? Because of all the other fours striking around the plate right now. Now, these new deep earthquakes are going to add more pressure in the next couple days, which we'll be getting into that tonight. In just a minute, we're going to issue a new forecast for the West Coast. So, we talked about this last night. We talked about the West Coast. We talked about how pressure had reached down to the south and it had nowhere to go. And it was going to start going back up to the north, right? And told everybody, 48 hours, we should see a new earthquake strike off the coast, northwest portion of California. Well, why are we looking at activity in the south right now? Well, just as I told you last night, pressure has reached all the way to the south. It doesn't have anywhere else to go. There's pressure coming up from the south, going up into the Gulf of California, coming up from the south, pushing up to the northwest right now. With the volcanic eruptions, the deformation along the plate boundary that's occurring. So the potential for fives to the south in the Gulf of California still exists, but that's from pressure coming up from the south. Here in California, it's dead end right into the San Andreas Fault going down into the Gulf. So let's turn down the earthquakes and take a look at the last 24 hours of small microquakes striking here. It's going to give us a better idea what's going on. Do you see the progression or the line of earthquakes here? Let me open up a screen capture for us to take a look. You guys should be able to see this here. Now, there's a red line I normally show around the planet. It's the plate boundary line, and in this case, it goes through Gulf of California and comes up and meets our fault zones that spread out from there in many directions. Now take a look at it, okay? Here's our fault zone map. The main plate boundary goes into the San Andreas. From there, it picks up and literally goes up the coast, correct? So our plate boundary carries all the way up the coast, but it splinters off into other fault zones that are more well-known. You got the Garlock, you got the Hayward, many of them, okay? So pressure's coming up from the south. It's locked. It's going to be releasing down here at the Gulf of California. And just south or at the border, right along the plate boundary, let's show you guys what's there. Okay, now take a look at this, guys. When we go in on Southern California, we're zooming in on Salton Sea. There's two volcanoes there, one on either side of the border. Here's Salton Sea Buttes. Again, at the south tip of Salton Sea, there's a volcano there. And also, right here, just south of the border, Cerro Prieto. And that is another volcano. And I'll zoom in and show you. Shown this many times in the past, but I like showing it because it's easy to remember. You'll remember Cerro Prieto in the future because it has Spanish graffiti in the crater that people have come in and carved into the center. Some of it's, if you can make it out, I don't really want to show it because there's some bad words in there, I think, from what people told me. And there we go. So, okay, we have two volcanoes on either side, and they're both on the plate boundary, which is also the fault zone for the area. And we have an earthquake swarm. striking right in between at El Centro, California. Well, if you zoom in on the area around El Centro, you're going to find out that there's multiple geothermal pumping operations where humans have drilled down into the earth. They inject water that's then piped off in steam because of the magma down below the volcano. That is turned instantly into steam, and they turn turbines here. You can see these on the map. There's many of these all over the place. And so a swarm is striking at this geothermal pumping operation. Again, it's the dead end on the pressure down to the south. But since that happened, since this new swarm struck, then a new series of earthquakes started to backfill up the San Andreas right now. Okay, excuse me. So the pressure is going back up the San Andreas. You can see the progression of earthquakes since the earthquake swarmed to the south. And this is going to carry on back up the entire coast. You're going to see this all excite up by tomorrow. By tomorrow night, I should be reporting to you two things. This has gone through the roof. Each one of these single earthquakes will be a stack. Then we'll get back up here. This will be a stack off the screen. There'll be a huge amount of earthquakes striking at the other geothermal pumping operation, and that's in Northern California at Clear Lake Volcano. Okay? After that, then we'll see, and again, we're talking just within the next day, we'll see movement strike here right along the coast in that upper 4.0 range, keeping in line with all the other upper fours that are striking around the plate right now. And then in the next couple days, we're going to see a new round of pressure come in off these new deep earthquakes that are happening now in the West Pacific. So in a 2 to 3 day time, another round of earthquakes is going to come in. And that's just for the coast of California. Following that, and this is all within the next 24 to 48 hours, we're going to see the movement off the coast, followed by Oklahoma being struck. So Oklahoma is going to be struck by pretty much the same magnitude that strikes here off the coast. So we're looking at two upper fours, one on the coast, one in the Midwest. The Midwest is going to be struck at the fracking operations to the west of what's striking right now. So you see the 3.4, you see the 2.1, look to the west at the Panhandle going up into Kansas, and that's more like where we're going to see. Pressure is going to be coming from the west-northwest and pushing to the east-southeast. And then, as if that wasn't all enough, the earthquake that strikes down here, again, we have a 2 day time frame on this, but by the time the 5 strikes down here, that's going to push back into the Midwest as well, but it's going to go up through Texas, which means Texas will be hit by, let's say, the end of the week. Let's put a 4 day on it. Why? Because it's going to take 1 to 2 days for the 5 to develop, and it'll take another day for the pressure to transfer up to the north, so that's already at 3 days. So let's put 4 days on it, which again puts us let's put it to Wednesday going into Thursday. And by Thursday, we should see all of this develop out from the Gulf of California, Northwest California, and the potential for a larger earthquake by this coming weekend in Oklahoma above the 4. So the 4 is going to hit first, then the 5 most likely. Now, if I got that backwards and the 5 hits first, then the 4, well, then you're really going to need to be on watch in Oklahoma. So this is go time now. This is go time. Every time we see the Gulf of California get struck, we see earthquakes in Texas and Oklahoma. Every time we see Northwest California get struck, we see earthquakes in Oklahoma. They increase as the pressure comes in from the West Coast. But the pressure doesn't just stop there. Whatever's not expended in Oklahoma and at the fracking operations across the Midwest, that then transfers to the East Coast. And that's what you see happen today, a 1.6, just a microquake. The leftovers off the 2s and 3s in the Midwest went over to the East Coast and struck at the Tennessee-North Carolina border. That'll happen again, but it's going to be much larger. Since we're talking about 4s striking, that means 3s on the East Coast. Yes, 3s. New England, Northeast, Southeast Quebec, near Maine. Let's say Maine, New Brunswick this time. Let's go with New Brunswick, going possibly as far east-northeast as Nova Scotia. Maine, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia. Be on watch for a mid-range 3 by the end of the week. I know, people never see earthquakes up there, but there it is. Be on watch. Now, over in Italy, we set the magnitude watch on it We told everybody when to watch for it. I wish I could give you some news that was good, that was going to let you know that things are calming down. They're not calming down, but the only saving grace, as I told you earlier, is that plate boundary that was struck and moved, what was it, 70 centimeters? Okay, that huge amount of movement that happened along the plate boundary has now allowed for the fault zone that's associated with the plate boundary right next to it to immediately release the pressure as it comes in without any buildup. It's gone fluid enough and settled out enough that it's now translating out. It's smoothed out, so to speak. So smoothing it out means that the pressure is going to come through a lot quicker. It's not going to build up. Build up and try to push it out, and it just can't do it. Oh, so that all being said, look to our silent zones, guys. Those are the next spots to be hit. They're always hit with greater movement. It's no shock, you shouldn't be alarmed. Please don't be scared. Be prepared. Being prepared means looking at the spots ahead of time to know when pressure's coming your way. You guys all know how to observe the weather, right? I mean, when you're looking at the radar and you see a big red mass detected by the radar and it's letting you know that a storm is coming your way. Okay, well, I want you to go think about that, okay, and how you look at radar. And radar is a representation of something you can't really see with your eyes. It's too far away, it's over the horizon, it's 50 miles away, but you know it's there because it's detected by radio waves that are bouncing off the sky. Okay, well, we know where pressure is, seismic pressure, based upon where the earthquakes are striking. And we can see a progression, and that's in quotes, we can see a progression of seismic events when we plot them on a three-dimensional globe and look at them real time. This isn't like looking at a two-dimensional map with plotting little pinpoints on it with, sticky notes and stuff like that. This is real-time data that's coming in, and we can see the relation between earthquakes across distances. They never had these tools before, so they couldn't see the relation. But now, today, you can see that 3 areas that we warned, and if you really want to include New Zealand in on that, all the areas we talked about were hit today, including Italy. And it's not just luck or chance, it's a progression of pressure across the whole planet in a day or two's time. It only takes a few days for pressure to get from the West Pacific all the way over to Italy. Same within the United States. So to be prepared, you have to look to foreign shores for what's happening. Kind of like looking for a large low-pressure system coming in. Again, with the weather, we can talk about looking at a large swirling low-pressure system come off the shores of Japan, and it'll take 3 or 4 days for it to blow across, maybe even less sometimes, but 3 or 4 days for it to blow across the North Pacific and reach into Alaska. Okay? That we can see that. We can see it with satellite imagery. Well, the pressure systems can be tracked, meteorological speaking, that the pressure that dictates those systems, you can't see that. Okay? But the pressure associated with those systems dictates the flow of those systems that you can see. Same goes for the pressure inside the Earth. And I would dare say it's somewhat related. But that's a whole nother video between the weather and the earthquakes, okay? So, word up to my people, and much love. Thank you for tuning in tonight. And if you don't have an earthquake plan ready, let me just tell you, develop one. Just look around your house and think about what would happen when an earthquake strikes. And, think about your possessions, your friends, your family, your loved one, your roommate, your pets, your employees. All these things need to be taken care of, and you need to look around. I don't know what to tell you to prepare for. I just do know to tell you that there's certain things that are priorities, like taking shelter when an earthquake's striking. Okay? Not trying to flee a house or structure when the earthquake's hitting. Right after those objects stop falling, then get out. Okay? Usually the earthquakes are not going to be big enough to knock down entire houses, or if it is big enough to knock down an entire house, you're going to want to do one of two things like the people in Italy did, which is you either want to be aware that it's coming and be at the door ready to go run out before anything starts falling. That's one option. That means you have to be prepared and be listening to the forecast. Or if you're not prepared and you still want to have something to know what to do when something strikes, then you need to be able to take shelter inside of your house. Worry about getting out after. And hope that your house is strong enough to withstand a large earthquake. And these are things that you can look into beforehand to find out, is it? And if you don't think your house is strong enough to withstand a large earthquake, and you live in an area where there could be the potential for a large earthquake, then you may want to reconsider where you live. Common sense solutions. Think about it. When you come to renew your lease, find a one-story ranch that's made out of wood, okay? I mean, just think, not everybody can do that, but just think about those things ahead of time, okay? Much love, and how many people are in here right now? About 500. About 500 in here, and about 40 over in the international chat, and a few people over in Twitch. Well, well, well. Hey, you know what? People are still using Twitch. In case you guys don't know, I do have a Twitch stream that backs up in case all these other streams go down. If you like my work, please subscribe to my channel. That's how I grow on YouTube. I'm trying to hit 170,000 by Christmas. Just set an arbitrary number. I hope I can go up that much in the next month. And hopefully you guys will be proud enough to share the earthquake warnings out to the world and let the people know in the areas that are warned. They have a few days' time to prepare. And the potential for a large earthquake exists this week, larger than what we saw last week. And as you saw last week, it produced a tsunami. So if it goes larger than that, it'll produce a larger wave. So take this very seriously. When we issue the potential for a large earthquake, I'm watching it every single day. And we're only watching for a few days' time for it to strike. I mean, it doesn't take that long for this stuff to develop off these deep earthquakes. So we only have like 2 more days to go before we can either see the earthquake or cancel the warning. So 2 days watch in this spot. Okay? Oh boy, it's been a wild week. It sure has, with all the deep earthquakes and all the other stuff happening around, with the earthquake juice and the whole, whatever you do, don't eat pizza with the earthquake juice. Now we have to add that in. I mean, it just keeps getting crazier and crazier, guys. So, word up to my people. Have a good evening, morning, afternoon, or night, Truman Show style. Drink your Makoko. Truman likes his Makoko. So drink it up, drink it good. Oh, word. Okay, guys. Yeah, I'll be back in. I'll be lurking. I will be lurking. I'll be lurking in the chat, watching the chat scroll by, looking for people who are trolling. Peace out, guys. Oh, I do have some mail. I have to get the camera set back up. I had to take that down for a little bit. I'm going to get the camera set back up, and I've got some viewer mail that was sent in from a couple different places. Check this out. Got something from somebody in Dennis in Modesto, California. Got something from Margaret in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. I got an international package by airmail from someone in Somerset, UK, England. And we got another package from John in Eaton, Ohio. So we got Ohio, we've got an international crowd represented. It's 4 things, and I can do a quick unboxing video, maybe get it done in 10 minutes if we don't have a lot to read, and get that out tonight. So I'll be back in probably right after midnight, which is an hour and a half from now. I want to get the unboxing video out for tomorrow's news cycle for YouTube so that everybody can see it tomorrow, if they sent me a package, Yeah, so that all being said, I don't think I have anything else to cover. Oh yeah, one other thing here. Take a look at the screen, guys. Let me refresh this one more time. This is my fundraiser. If you like my work, there's a link down below to the fundraiser. It's no pressure, but it's going to be over in 5 days. So I don't know how I'm going to hit my goal. I got 5 days left in the fundraiser, and I got 25% more to go. Looks like I'm going to take a pay cut this year. Looks like I could have cut down trees. Man, damn it, I'm taking a $10,000 hit so that I can freaking do YouTube. That sucks. It's a sad day when you can go cut down trees and make more money than you can on YouTube doing earthquake forecasting. Not that I'm in it for the money or anything, but shit, man, I could freaking make more cutting down trees. All right, no offense. That's what I would normally make in a year. I made the choice. I took a pay cut to do this. It's okay. It's just an option. You guys don't have to give, but it's going to be over in 5 days. All right. Peace out. Word up. I'll be back.